We'll start today's meeting with the territorial acknowledgement. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather, land on which we are broadcasting from today, is the land traditionally cared for by the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Chinootan people. We also acknowledge the enduring presence and the deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today. And for a moment of reflection, at the beginning of this council meeting, we pause to think about the needs of our community. May we show wisdom and compassion in all our decisions. So council, seeing if anyone has a disclosure of a pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof, seeing none, looking for someone to approve the minutes moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Rowe, for the April 14th council minutes. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. So we have, to start today, a presentation and a delegation. Matthew Day is the Executive Director of Waterloo Region Community Energy. Welcome, Matthew. I think you've been here before, so you know how to adjust the, okay, great. Welcome, Matthew. You have 10 minutes.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for having me here today. It's always a delight to speak to Waterloo Council. My name is Matthew Day. I'm the Executive Director of WR Community Energy. WRCE is a not-for-profit. We were established in partnership with the municipalities and the utilities to help steer the energy transition and to coordinate targeted energy investments. We oversee the development of the Community Energy Investment Strategy that was approved by this council and all of the other councils in 2018. So here today, I'm here to talk about the 2024 report. In our 2024 report, I talk about how we can meet 50% of our energy consumption in Waterloo Region with local, clean, affordable energy sources. We were able to do this in part because of our tremendous assets that we have. Past generations have given us tremendous assets for us to use wisely. I'm thinking here about our utilities, but we also have particularly advantageous geology and the University of Waterloo and many other opportunities here that I think position us particularly well to take a leadership role in the energy transition. A quick note on the energy transition. Energy transitions, they're not just about fuel switching. It's about being conscious and deliberate with how we plan and build and live in our communities. It has always been the case that as energy changes, our urban landscape changes quite significantly. So when European settlers first settled in our community, they settled around natural energy sources, including waterfalls. When we became good at importing energy in terms of coal, we began to industrialize, and then we started growing up around our rail networks. In 1910s, electricity came to our community en masse. That allowed for things like elevators and street lighting and water pumps. This allowed us to build up. This developed our downtowns. We began to urbanize for the first time. After the Second World War, natural gas became a good energy source for us, and same with gasoline. We began to suburbanize. And for a while, this led to a great boom in population and affordable housing. But then after a while, we began to see the downsides of suburbanization in terms of urban sprawl, taking over agricultural lands. Infrastructure became very expensive. It led to a lot of segregation and a lot of environmental degradation. We are now in this fifth form of the energy transition, and here we're looking at clean, local, equitable energy sources. And with that, our urban environment is changing. We are investing in infrastructure like we never have before. By decentralizing our energy sources, we are able to generate clean, local energy sources that keep our dollars local. And we're able to clean up some of the environmental challenges we've had with development in the past. So if I can, I'll speak a little bit about the numbers of energy. We spend over $2 billion a year in energy in Waterloo Region, and this has stayed relatively consistent for the last 10 years. Of that, only 13% of those dollars stay in our community. So 87%, or about $1.8 billion, leave our community. And that's because we import over 99% of our energy. And this just doesn't need to be the case. And what's worse is of all of that energy, we waste 45% of it, mostly in terms of pollution and urban heat island effect. So we only use 55% of that energy. So that's $900 million a year we spend on pollution. When you start looking at our energy through our utilities, some clear next steps emerge. So this is a complicated graph. You don't need to you don't need to understand it fully, although these Sankey diagrams do tell a lot of really interesting information. So you can maybe take a look at it later. But the point here is from the left to the right, you see our energy flowing through our two major utility sources, electricity and natural gas, through our 4 utilities. And then you'll see at the end use, the commercial, residential, and industrial sectors. 40% of our energy is used by natural gas for space heating. And this worked well in the 1950s and 60s, but we have better opportunities now. We can generate this energy locally, affordably, and in an equitable way. In fact, this is being done all over Waterloo region. We have 10 times the amount of what I'm calling low-grade heat to heat our buildings in our community than we actually need. We spend $200 million a year on this low-grade heat. So just in terms of just physics, a quick example, natural gas burns at 2,000 degrees, just a matter of fact. Steel melts at 1,500 degrees. As an energy person, I'm okay with that amount of energy. That's a relatively good use of fossil fuels. We don't want to use fossil fuels all of the time. I think of them like champagne. Occasionally, they're good, but they shouldn't be used for celebration all the time. We don't need to burn 2,000 degrees of energy to heat our spaces here at 21 degrees. There are much better local, affordable energy sources for that. I mentioned the Community Energy Investment Strategy. Again, that was passed by councils in 2018. This is a 24-year plan to help steer the energy transition in Waterloo region. We have divided our work into 6 terms of council. This is the 2nd term of council. And we are focusing on this low-carbon local heat source. So we have mapped out our heat supply and our heat demand. Again, there's plenty of energy if we use it wisely and if we coordinate. There are 11 projects actively underway in Waterloo region to use this energy wisely and smartly and affordably. And I've broken it down into 3 major sections of the economy here. One is market-based solutions, the other are policy solutions and infrastructure solutions. So this is an integrated network of work from all of our municipalities and our utilities and our business friends. So yes, there's some good work happening. And the reason why I want to show you this is to say that this is already happening, this is real, and it's in effect. So this is not some idealized dream. There are several projects within a kilometer of here that already use these local energy sources that are proven technologically, they're proven financially. And I'm just asking that we're smart about how we use our energy moving forward. In the next few months, you will likely see a few projects coming forward. When you see those projects, I do ask you to consider what energy means for our community in terms of taxpayers, in terms of affordability, in terms of livability, and in terms of climate change, and what we can do collaboratively. 2 projects that I'm currently working on. One is on high-performance development standards. Let's make sure the buildings that we build now can use these local energy sources for the benefit of everybody. And then also looking at district energy. We have an abundance of district energy opportunities here in Waterloo region, from low carbon heat sharing in terms of wastewater heat recovery, industrial waste heat, geothermal, and others. So yeah, that's it for me today. But again, I just ask, as you're making these decisions moving forward, think about energy in our community, how it can be sourced locally, affordably, in proven technologies, and think about what that means for the community at large and the community that we want to build and live in together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Really appreciate the work that you're doing on this file as well as the presentation today. So, Council, are there any questions of the delegate? Councillor Wright.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mayor. Matthew, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us today. There are sort of two things that I'm hoping that maybe you can comment on further. One is maybe you could describe some of the challenges that we're facing across the region that are out of the scope of our municipal control. Just that little bit of context around what we have control over and what we don't.
It's a big question, Councillor Wright. When I first started working in energy and climate change in Waterloo region, it used to be the case that if you could show that you're saving the environment and if you could save money at the same times, that used to be enough. But things have become very political over the last little bit. When I started a lot of this work, I would meet with many developers and industry and market folks, and they would give me really excellent feedback. And so many of these policies and market solutions that you see on this board come from that collaborative work. But lately, it does seem that things have become more political. Partners that I used to talk to now send me to their PR people, and they don't often respond. So I would say that beyond our community, there is a sense of competition and anti-collaboration that might be slowing us down a little bit.
And if I may, just as a follow-up, yeah. So one of the other things I just want to touch on too is that when we talk about heating using natural gas, much of that natural gas is imported from outside of Ontario and even outside of Canada. Could you comment on that just briefly?
So I have been talking to our utility friends about this, and it is surprisingly difficult to find an official amount for where that energy comes from. But yeah, I can say the vast majority comes from outside of Ontario. I do think that Canada produces enough natural gas to heat our community, but whether that natural gas makes it to Ontario or to Kitchener or not, it's a question of certification, but it certainly does flow through pipes that flow through the United States, so there is a little bit of a risk there.
Thank you. Other questions from members of council? Just a couple of questions from me, Matthew. Just picking up in your point about some of the politics of this, I'm just curious, because we know we've just had a federal election, and we know we've heard people throw out the need for nation-building projects in response to some of the challenges emanating from our southern partners. And one of those big projects that I feel like I hear most often is about building pipeline, like an fossil fuel pipeline across the country. Just wondered, I would suspect that that's something that you don't think is necessary, but what advice you might have for elected officials like us and, our newly elected MPs and MPPs on that, what advice you'd give us in terms of trying to, consider that what's being touted publicly.
I would ask questions about timelines and cost and trends. We've seen for a while, the natural gas folks are very honest about this. Natural gas is growing smaller than our population growth. So more and more of our buildings are being heated through very efficient electronic means. Not just resistance heaters, not the 70s style resistance heaters, but the 1-to-4 ratio. So 1 unit of electricity means 4 units of heat. Technology is changing significantly, and we're seeing more and more developments use this technology. So the question I would say is, how long would it take for us to get that natural gas to Waterloo region? How much would it cost? And by the time it gets it here, how much of it will we really need?
Thank you. And my other question, just thinking of the provincial legislation, and I don't know if you've had time to look at Bill 5. I haven't looked at it in great detail, but Bill 5 has been tabled by the provincial government, and it's a large bill. There's a lot of pieces to it, but just wondered if you had any initial thoughts on implications that may arise out of that piece of legislation and how that might impact the work that you're doing here.
I think it was just released hours ago, or earlier today, I think, right? Yeah, I haven't read it in detail.
Okay.
A few things caught me when I read the summary. It's not absolutely clear that it is targeting high-performance development standards or the work that we're looking at here. The development standards, for example, that we're looking at is exclusively a planning tool. It doesn't talk to construction standards at all. It seems to imply there's a fight between planning and code. I certainly don't see it that way at all. The folks on the working group for these development standards are very respectful of code. We know how much technical research that goes into each of those elements, and I don't see the development standards going against that at all. So again, planning tool, some of the things we look at aren't, like greenhouse gas emissions are not in the code at all as it stands. So I personally don't see the controversy between planning decisions and building decisions. And if they're focusing on construction, again, I don't see how that applies, but we'll see what happens when the legislation is tabled.
Okay.
The other immediate thought when I reviewed it, it seems like that was developed in consultation with the development industry. And it doesn't include a lot of work with the community groups. So I suspect there's a lot of opportunities for collaboration. And there's probably some perspectives that were missed in the draft of this. So I could imagine it changing significantly.
Okay, thank you for that. And then just my last question is, you mentioned that there's a lot of opportunities for district energy systems. I didn't catch if you said in Waterloo or Waterloo region, but could you just maybe give us a couple of examples, particularly that are for Waterloo?
I can't speak to the conclusions, but I can tell you the work that is currently underway or that we're looking at. There's a tremendous project in Mississauga right now, Lakeshore. They are using their waste heat from the effluent from their wastewater treatment plant to heat entire neighborhoods. We have a very similar sized wastewater treatment plant on University Avenue that produces about, well, roughly the same amount of heat that a university, for example, would need. So we are looking preliminarily to see if there's, if that makes sense in our community. There are some, there's talk about some AI server farms in Waterloo region, and if that's the case, then there would be some heat recovery opportunities there. And at the same time, I hear North America's 10th largest hospital being built in Waterloo region, and that would be built beside a university and an R&T park. There are many examples in Ontario of where universities and hospitals can share heat quite well. So.
Oh, great, thank you. And you did hear rightly. We are getting that hospital in Waterloo to serve the entire Waterloo region. So, okay, thank you so much. Seeing no other questions from council, thanks very much for your presentation and the work that you're doing, and we'll look forward to continuing to work with you. Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in today. Okay, council, so we'll move on to consent items. Is there anyone that anything that anyone wanted to pull from the consent motions? I don't want to pull them from consent, but I just wanted to, just a couple of comments, just to say that the year-end investment report, I guess Philippa, through you to Kim Rieger, well done in a challenging environment. Oh, sorry, Kim is here. There you are. Sorry. Kudos to you, Kim. It's a challenging market right now, but you were able to squeeze a little bit more interest rate from, like, with moving some different investments around and doing it in a really smart way. So thanks very much for that. Really appreciate your work on that. And just on the annual statement of development charges, just again a comment that we know there's a lot of talk right now provincially and federally about development charges, and I think this is a really helpful summary of where they go to, what we do with them, why we build reserves. These are built sometimes because we have large scale projects that we do need to save money for, but I mean this money is used for things like parks, libraries, in addition to the services like infrastructure services, recreation facilities and things like that. So we know there's a lot of discussion about development charges right now, but federally and provincially, if there's any changes happening to that, I think it really behooves that it really needs to have the municipalities and the development sector at the table should any changes be contemplated. So just wanted to make those comments about that. But seeing that there's no one that wants to pull anything from there, I'll just ask for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Bodley, seconded by Councillor Roach. All in favor? That is carried. Thanks again, Kim. Okay, so moving on to staff reports. Albert McCormick Community Centre Phase A Energy and Accessibility Retrofit Project. the award of the request for tender. There's a presentation by Heather Liddicoat. Welcome, Heather. Nice to see you. And we'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon. I am pleased to be here today to share an update on the Albert McCormick Community Centre Energy and Accessibility Project and the progress we've made to date. The city has successfully completed the design and tendering process for the AMCC Energy and Accessibility Retrofit Project. The focus of this project is twofold: to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to improve accessibility throughout the facility. This work is supported by a $2.4 million federal grant from the Government of Canada, provided through the Infrastructure Canada's Green and Inclusive Buildings Program. Throughout the project, the team has worked closely with the consulting team comprised of Ward 99 architects and Walter Fady to develop a plan that supports the city's energy reduction goals. As part of the design, we will be implementing the following key measures. There'll be a roof replacement, which is, although is outside the scope of the grant, replacing the roof at this time is a practical choice, as the roof is at the end of life and it sits directly beneath the HVAC units being upgraded. This work will be funded through the city's roofing replacement strategy. We'll also be infilling the skylight over the west rink. This will reduce energy loss and improve building envelope performance. We'll be doing upgrades to the interior wall assemblies between the rinks and corridors. These will include installing new energy-efficient windows between the corridors and the rinks to improve building performance. There's many accessibility and inclusion upgrades. I will be covering these on a following slide. There will also be many mechanical upgrades, including the electrification of the dehumidification units and hot water heating system, building automation system improvements, and the addition of refrigeration plant heat recovery. We will also be adding cooling to both rinks, which will allow the city to expand summer programming and the facility to act as a cooling center. LED lighting upgrades will also occur throughout the facility. These measures support the city's commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The projected outcome is a 30% reduction in current greenhouse gas consumption, equivalent to more than 100 tons annually. The plan shown here represents the final design for the new washrooms located across from the East Rink. The renovated space prioritizes accessibility, inclusivity, and functionality. Key features include a universal washroom designed to exceed standard accessibility requirements. This space includes a ceiling lift, adult change table, and a shower, along with an increased turning radius to support a wide range of user needs. In response to increased requests for inclusive change spaces, the design incorporates 2 private gender-neutral change rooms. One of the barrier-free washrooms also includes a bench to accommodate overflow if needed. We're also including 12 individual gender-neutral washrooms, 2 of which are barrier-free. These provide flexible, inclusive options for all users. Additional accessibility upgrades not shown in this plan include the installation of automatic sliding doors at the west entrance, closest to the parking lot. This improvement enhances the access to the facility, particularly for individuals using mobility devices, parents with strollers, and others in the community. The design has been reviewed with both GRAC and the READY team, and their feedback has been integrated into the final plan. The tender for the project closed on April 22nd, with 7 compliance submissions received. The lowest bid was submitted by Zara Construction and came in at approximately $4.9 million. This results in a total project cost, including consulting fees, of about $5.3 million. The project is funded through the following sources: $2.4 million from the Government of Canada, provided through the Infrastructure Canada's Green and Inclusive Community Building Program, $600,000 from the city's Capital Infrastructure Reinvestment Reserve. As well, the washrooms were originally included in Part B of the project. We are now requesting an administrative transfer of $1.5 million to cover the cost of the new washroom facilities and the addition of cooling to both arenas. In addition, we are requesting a further $788,000 in administrative transfers to support additional scope items, including accessibility upgrades, roofing work, and additional energy efficiency measures. Pending approval, construction is scheduled to start at the end of the month and should be completed by March 2026. On the screen is a summary of our recommendation for Council's approval. This concludes our presentation, and we'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you very much, Heather. It's a great summary of a project that's very exciting and I think long overdue. So Council, are there questions of Heather or Kevin? Go ahead, Councillor Hanmer.
You're looking at both of us. Thank you, Mayor. I'm just not sure which one of us you're picking. Heather, thank you very much for the report and for the update. What struck me as you were going through it, it is definitely a very much needed project, and I think when finished, it will help. I can't help but wonder, with the time of construction, what the impact is going to be on our usual user groups, because we're in very prominent areas within the facility. So can you elaborate on that, please?
Yes, I can. Through the Mayor to Councillor Hammer. We have coordinated shutdowns so that we're only shutting down one rink through the entire summer. So we'll kind of bounce between the two rinks depending on the work that needs to be done. We are really pushing forward with this work in order to get in over the summer months when it is a little less busy. We have got confirmation from the contractor that they should be able to hit the dates required in order to get ice back in for September. As for the washroom portion, there will be hoarding down that corridor, but you'll still have access down that in front of that entire east rink. Just a portion of it will be hoarded off to allow for the construction to happen on the back end. And I do believe the preliminary schedule is showing that being done mid-October, which is kind of at the beginning of hockey season. So hopefully it won't disrupt hockey season too much having that work happening, but I think we can make it work.
Okay. Thank you for that. One
Do you
more,
have a
if I could.
follow-up?
Yeah, I do have a follow-up. And it is in relation to the washroom and the universal dressing rooms that you're also putting in there. Just curious where that one is in terms of proximity to the other dressing rooms for the east and the west rink. It's quite a distance
It
from
is
one.
quite, yes. And we explored other options. At this time, we're not touching those, and so it didn't make sense to do the work there. I think we're going to continue to explore options for future. We'll see how these two work out. We haven't actually implemented a universal change space or gender neutral change space in a hockey rink before. So we want to make sure what we're implementing is going to actually work before we go too far too.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that. Perhaps you want to bring the various user groups involved, because my concern is where it's located, it's not going to get used.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think Steve's here, but my understanding is there was an older single change space there that is often used. It's not as convenient. It would be nice to get them down that main row, but that would be a much more extensive project at this time than we have the budget for.
I fully understand. I know if we could do what we wanted to do, it would be quite different. So just a suggestion to make sure that we're encouraging utilization of it, reaching out to the user groups earlier to let them know what's there and how to access may help us really understand what do we need the change room to look like.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Hanmer. Other questions from council? Okay, seeing none. I'm just wondering if you, through you, if you could share our thanks to the team with GRAC. I know Councillor Hanmer is part of that. I could take a drink of water if you need that. Because I know, I'm glad to hear that they've already reviewed these plans, because I know we toured the Waterloo Rec Center not too long ago, and there was some questions and recommendations they had, particularly around how the washrooms and the change rooms and that look. So hopefully those comments and what they pointed out can be can be accommodated in this renovation because, it just makes sense to do it now. Sorry, yeah, that was really, if you could just take that back to them and because the accessibility of this space is really critically important and it makes a lot of sense to do it at this time.
And they've been a fantastic resource. We've been very appreciative of all the feedback they give, because as you mentioned, let's do it right the first time rather than having to go back in and fix a space. So.
Right, yeah, and as Councillor Hanmer said, talking to the user groups in advance to make sure they know what's there, what's available to be used, so that they, everyone can hit the ground knowing what's available through the space and how it can be utilized, because we know it's been a long time coming, the renovation of this community center, and the amount of work that we're doing. I think, Councillor Roach, you've said before that the space hasn't changed since you were 5 or 6 years old in the community, so it's long overdue. Sorry, did you have a comment?
Not 5 or 6. That would be before Lakeshore was built. But no, we moved into Lakeshore probably in early 70s, so it hasn't been a lot of changes since the mid 70s.
Yeah, so we want to get it right while we're doing this. So, okay, thank you, Heather. I don't see any further questions right now. So there are Yes, there are recommendations. So I would look to council. I don't know, Councillor Hanmer, if you wanted to move them. And Councillor Roach, you want to second them? Okay, all in favor of the recommendations? That is carried. Thank you very much. Thanks, Heather. Okay, so the next part of the presentation is Heather again for the second part of this important project. This is the Albert McCormick Community Centre Sportsplex and Waterloo Public Library McCormick Branch Library Renovation Project update. So we'll turn it back to you, Heather.
Perfect. Thank you again. So now on to the slightly more fun and glamorous portion of the project, the AMCC Sportsplex and WPL McCormick Branch Library renovation. So the focus of this initiative is to expand and improve the McCormick Branch Library and Community Center to better meet the evolving needs of our community. The upgraded facility will provide more inclusive, flexible, and accessible spaces for residents of all ages. We've completed the schematic design along with Class D estimate, and we're now moving into the detailed design phase, which will further refine the layouts, materials, and construction requirements. The project is a collaborative effort between several key team members, including staff from the Waterloo Public Library, Recreation Services, the Community Program and Outreach Service Team, and the READY team. All these groups have contributed valuable insights to ensure the upgraded facility reflects the community needs and supports a more inclusive, welcoming, and functional space for all. Engagement with the community and key stakeholders has played a vital role in shaping this project. The Waterloo Public Library has led engagement efforts specific to the McCormick branch, gathering feedback from patrons, staff, and the broader community to understand how the space can better serve local needs. In addition, the 2023 Indoor Community Space Strategy provided valuable insight into how indoor spaces are used across the city and highlighted opportunities for improvement at this site. We've also engaged directly with our community and partners, including House of Friendship, Adventure for Change, both of whom would like to operate out of the Albert McCormick facility and work closely with residents. Their input has been essential in identifying programming needs and barriers to access. Finally, we've initiated early engagement with GRAC to identify potential barriers in the design. Involving individuals early in the process has allowed us to proactively address accessibility concerns. We also plan to return to the full committee to present the detailed design and will continue to incorporate their recommendation as the project progresses. Together, these engagement efforts have provided a well-rounded and inclusive foundation for the design process. The plan shown here represents the schematic design for the renovated and expanded community center and McCormick Branch Library. Key features include a community room. Based on the findings of the 2023 Indoor Community Space Strategy, the project team identified a need for a more versatile programming space, specifically a space that could support both active uses, like pickup and recreational sports, and passive uses, such as rentals and community programming. To achieve this, the design includes raising the ceiling height and installing sports flooring. While the space won't be a full-size gym due to site constraints, these enhancements will allow the city to offer a broader range of programming, from physical activity to social and cultural events, in a flexible, multi-use environment. Another key feature of the design is the addition of a full commercial kitchen. Identified through community feedback as a high priority, this space will support local food programs and services, particularly for our partners at Adventure for Change and House of Friendship, who play a vital role in addressing food insecurity and building connected communities. The design includes features like a dedicated exterior entrance for independent access and deliveries, and the ability to separate the servery from the main kitchen to support both public programming and food safety. The new design also includes a prominent updated entrance on the east side of the facility. This entrance will create a direct and fully accessible connection between the arena, the McCormick Branch Library, and the new City Community Room, making it easier for users to move between spaces. It will feature automatic sliding doors and tactile guidance elements to ensure barrier-free access for all members of the community. Moving on to the library space. The design features you see are a direct result of the engagement completed over the summer. The renovated and expanded McCormick Branch Library will include a dedicated library program room, allowing the library to expand its offerings and serve more residents. There will be a bright, welcoming collection area with dedicated zones for quiet study and bring your own device use, along with a vibrant children's area designed for exploration and learning. Additional features include makerspace, a community partnership, 2 private study rooms, updated staff areas, and a cozy lounge-style seating area to make the space feel warm and inviting for all users. The next slides show renderings of what the exterior of the renovated and expanded facility will look like. As you can see, the transformation will significantly enhance the appearance and presence of the building. The updated design brings a fresh, modern look that reflects the vibrancy and diversity of the community it serves. The renovation replaces the existing dated exterior with clean lines, more natural light, and improved accessibility. Altogether, this project breathes new life into the facility, making it not only more functional, but also a place that residents can feel proud to call their own. So the estimated total cost of the project based on the Class D estimates is $14.5 million. This includes the $1.5 million for the Phase A scope, which was included as part of the administrative transfer mentioned in my previous presentation. Currently, we have secured $7.6 million in confirmed funding, leaving a shortfall of $6.9 million. To address this, we have several funding options to continue to review, including DC charge funding, use of the Facility Transformational Projects Fund, reference 225, and various other pathways as laid out in the report. Additionally, we are waiting on a decision on the Community Sport and Infrastructure Grant. If approved, this funding would help support additional elements not currently included in the project, including the upgrades to the main entrance and the creation of a sensory room. We are hoping to hear news on this shortly. The project is scheduled to be issued for tender November 2025, with the goal to award the contract by February 2026. Construction will begin in March 2026 with an 18-month construction window. It's important to note that the library and community center will be closed during this time to accommodate the renovations. On the screen is the summary of our recommendations for council's consideration, and that concludes our presentation, and we're open to questions.
Thank you very much, Heather. Council, are there questions of staff? Councillor Rowe.
Thank you so much, Heather. The visuals on the redesigned community center are gorgeous. I do have a couple questions, and I'm wondering if you can just help me unpack a little bit about the community engagement. So as you've already said the library did some community engagement and you've been in touch with GRAC and Adventure for Change and House of Friendship. So I'm wondering if the library engagement, if that was just for the library, or was that for the full space, and how people in the community were hoping to use the new space?
Through the mayor to Councillor Rowe, it was the majority of it was focused on the library space. At the time when we were looking at doing engagement, we were a little hesitant on actually going out to the community. From my understanding, there has been a lot of engagement that has previously occurred, which we leaned on, but the biggest problem is we never were able to implement it. And we were really confined to our footprint, so we didn't want to go too far in the engagement and then not be able to offer any of the stuff that had been heard. So we really leaned on past engagement. The Recreation and Community Services team had kind of spoken with clients and internal parties and brought that feedback back to us. So that was what we really based this design off of, and the feedback that came into that indoor community strategy.
Okay, thank you. So what I'm thinking then for moving forward, how will the community be engaged, like the neighborhood, to ensure that the space does reflect their needs?
We will go out now, once we get council's approval, to move forward with an engage page. And we will kind of ask more focused questions. We don't want to set expectations for something that can't happen. Like, we don't want to go out and say here that they want a community pool and there's just no way we can fit a community pool on the site. So we'll go out with more focused engagement questions, looking at the space like the community program room and asking what they would like to see offered there. Because at this point, we're flexible on what lines we put in that gym floor for what programming we offer. So that's kind of the engagement plan moving forward. It's going to be a little bit more focused, just so that we're not setting expectations we can't meet.
Thank you. If I can have a follow-up?
Sure.
Okay. And then I'm thinking, beyond engage, will there be like public information sessions right in the neighborhood?
Yes.
Because I think sometimes there are barriers to accessing engage, or people don't know it's there, that kind of thing. So that would be great, and because I would love to see how the community itself would like to use the kitchen space and the community space specifically.
Yeah, and my hope is to actually go out too with boards and everything, presenting that final design that we'd have as kind of a fixture in the space for a couple months throughout the summer, and really share the vision for the space and collect feedback that way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Other questions from council? Oh, you have more? Okay, Councillor Roach.
I am just going to reserve my comments and questions for the delegates, after the delegates present.
Okay, that's great. Councillor Rowe.
I can keep asking questions. Okay, so one more question, possibly two. But there's more. I'm wondering just about the funding requirements, and if there's any concern that the funding requirements could change beyond the plus minus 20 to 25%. I'm thinking about the unknowns around the current economic situation and how that could factor in, and could we be looking at something different down the road?
Through the mayor and Councillor Rowe, at this time, there's a lot of uncertainty, so I can't say today this is going to be the final budget number. What I can say is that we are finding that our tender prices are coming in below our Class D estimates, typically by about that 20 to 25%. We have also spoken with a lot of contractors out in the industry, and we know that they're quite hungry for work right now. So our hope is that we would get quite competitive pricing when we do go out for this. However, if Trump, or can I say that here?
We try not to use that name again.
If there's tariffs announced tomorrow that are 50%, we really can't confirm that these numbers will work. So we'll have to, at that time, go out and speak with the contractor and try to negotiate different prices and look at areas where we can cut. But we're remaining optimistic right now that it will be within this budget that we're proposing here.
Thank you. I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thanks, and I'll just pick up on the financial question, because I'm curious about the scope contingency at 15%. And is that the normal amount that we hold there? And then I'm also wondering the difference between the overhead and scope contingency. Because between the two of them, they're adding up to about 20%. So could you just explain what those are, you or Brad?
Well, I'll
Go ahead,
tackle the
whichever.
scope
Yeah, okay.
contingency, and I'll let Brad speak to the overhead. So the scope contingency is typically about 15 to 20%. We have kept it closer to the 15 because within the Class D estimates, there was other contingencies baked in. So by the time you factored in those contingencies, we were closer to the 20%. So we felt, or to 15%. So we felt comfortable keeping it at that number, especially since we do find the Class D estimates tend to run on the high side.
Although you're hopeful that, you also said that tenders are coming in lower, so they may, even though you're budgeting 15%, you're hoping that that Class D estimate will come in lower than 20%?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then I'll let Brad talk to overhead.
Thanks, Heather. To you, Mayor. The overhead is an internal charge that we apply to all applicable capital projects in accordance with policy, and that's to recover kind of all the administration that would go into a capital project. So as an example, the time that Heather and many, many others put into it. So that rate was 4%. And as council may recall, as part of the 25 budget confirmation, we had made a recommendation to council, which was approved, that that's been increased to 5%. And just maybe to close that loop, any annual surplus from capital overhead, which Paul will touch on later in his report, does by policy get allocated to the capital infrastructure reinvestment reserve to kind of then reinvest back into our infrastructure. But that 5% is an internal recovery.
Okay, great, thank you very much, that's really helpful. And then my other question was just around the kitchen. Is it also accessible, like with the sinks, and so people in wheelchairs and that are able to reach taps and sinks and?
Yeah, let me just go back. So if you notice, there's that dotted line right next to the door to the exterior access. That is going to be a movable partition so that the servery maintains, we're looking at a much larger than AODA requirements for turning radius. And we want that servery to still accommodate that larger turning radius. We're also working with the consultants. That island that's being shown will actually be 2 different heights, which won't just be good for anybody in a mobility device, but also work for anybody elderly who have a hard time standing for that length of time. And then, again, sinks and all the other stuff, we'll be working with GRAC to confirm locations and heights and everything for those as well.
Okay, great, thank you very much, I appreciate that. Are there other comments or questions from council? No, okay. Then I will thank you, Heather. You can take a break and sit down. And we'll welcome Frank Menzik, who's the board chair for Waterloo Public Library, and Nicole Campbell, who's also a board member on the Waterloo Public Library. And I know we have a few other board members here. Thank you for coming. I see Dawn and Kelly and of course Frank and Nicole. And then we've got Laura Reed and Kelly Kipfer, who are staff with the library. So thanks for coming today, and thanks for the vision and the work that you've put into developing this. So over to you, Frank. You have 10 minutes.
I love this. This is as high as it goes. I might challenge this way as opposed to the other way. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today, and really to emphasize to you the support that the library board and the staff at the library have for this renovation at the McCormick branch. As Councillor Roach mentioned, this particular renovation is a long time coming. Very little has been done with respect to that, and we know currently that the branch really doesn't meet all of the requirements or the needs of the community that it serves. As I mentioned, the second speaker is Nicole, and she'll be bringing the soft touch to this because she's a member of the board as well as a person who lives in the community, and her family uses the library consistently. Main purpose is really to indicate to you the complete support that the board has with respect to the proposed renovation for the McCormick branch. I know that there were a smaller scale and a larger scale, and we've always wanted to look at what is best for the community. And as mentioned earlier on, is that now's the time to really move this forward in that it kind of complements Phase A, which is obviously the rink side of things. So we're really looking forward to moving this forward, hopefully with your recommendation. We're obviously here to ask council to approve the recommendation as indicated in your materials, and that we're very much in favor of the proposal itself. I think it's fair to say that the community around this branch is home to a very diverse population, which includes multi-generational families, families on fixed income, children, teens, and older adults, as well as young professional and post-secondary students. An interesting statistic is that almost 40% of the residents in this area were born outside Canada, which have very significant and other needs. The library itself is a very well-used space. In 2024, the library had 78,000 in-person visits, who borrowed over 80,000 items and welcomed over 7,000 participants in 227 programs. I think it's fair to say that with these numbers, there's a clear indication that the library needs to expand to accommodate the growing and changing needs of this particular community. I'm sure that most of you have probably been in the McCormick branch, and currently there's very little space for a lot of the things that we would like to see occur in that particular space. I sort of appreciate the question earlier on about engagement and what sort of engagement has already been done with respect to the project, and just want to talk a little bit about the community engagement with respect to the library in particular. The library staff engaged in a variety of activities to collect input from customers, partners, and community about what they would like to see in this expanded space. One thing I really liked is the poster that was used in the branch itself to sort of gauge the reaction of the customers as to the sort of things that we would like to see, or they would like to see in the space. So although it's a smaller graphic on there, but the McCormick branch expansion allowed users of the library to basically using stickers to indicate where they would like to see funding go, and essentially what it is that they would like to see in an expanded space. This included not only the board, as you see up in the upper right corner, but also an online survey, which had over 500 responses, postcards, in-branch posters like the one you see there, prompting users to use stickers to visually indicate what they would like to see. The community really wanted to talk to us about this library. The level of participation was a demonstrative of the passion people have for this particular branch. We heard what people loved and what they would like to see in the future. So at this point, I'm going to ask Nicole to come up and talk about her experiences with respect to the library and the community that it serves. I think you'll find that her stories are quite interesting.
Thank you, Frank. Welcome, Nicole.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for letting me be here and present. I just want to tell you that we've lived in Waterloo since 1972, and except for university, I've lived in Lakeshore my whole life. And as a child, the Albert McCormick Ranch was very important to me. Me and my friends, we would meet there to do homework and stuff like that. But, you know, as I grow up, obviously, I could do less of that. You know, everybody gets bigger. It's like the house. The house is big enough for you, and then you have the kids, and the kids get bigger, and suddenly the house is smaller. And that's exactly what's happened at Albert McCormick. Heather did a fantastic job showing you how, all the different ways that the renovated library could be used. Importantly, there'll be additional seating and gathering areas. Very important because in our community, within walking distance of the Albert McCormick branch is a lot of poverty, the most poverty in Waterloo region. And having somewhere to go, having some additional space, having access to computers, to internet, that's very important. We would also like to have, again, that additional space for Adventure for Change, for the YMCA, for House of Friendship, supporting those communities, whether they're the poverty or the new to Canada communities. Really exciting for youth as like older youth. I'm thinking of my children, having somewhere to book a space to do some studying. When we had the pandemic and you know, you had to do your homework, your schooling at home, your studying at home. When you have a small home, you look to the library. What can I book? Can I book some space at the library? And so that would be very important, a very important consideration. I've also been in contact with my community about if there's a renovation, or, you know, what are you looking for? And that maker space certainly has been something people are very excited about. The new technologies, bringing their children and introducing their families to the library. You know, you have a new baby, what do you do? Well, at least what I did when I had my children or had my nieces born. Let's take them to the library and get a library card. And when you can just walk to the branch down the street, that's fantastic. The council knows that there's 59 high-rise apartments that are proposed to be constructed. Those 59 apartments are within 1.5 kilometers of the Albert McCormick branch. 59 high-rise buildings. That's a lot of people in the future that are going to be walking to the branch. You know, if we're making our city a 15-minute city, Albert McCormick, there's going to be the library, there's shops, there's working, there's the new proposed hospital. That is a really great representation of a 15-minute city. A lot of our community are people who rely on public transit, who don't have vehicles. So you can't, you know, drive to the main library or to the east side or to the one in Laurelwood, and to have something that we're really proud of, that we actually have the resources that we can walk to. Really important. That's why we're really looking forward to a renovation of that library. Excuse me.
You have 1 minute. I don't mean to interrupt, but
Thank
just
you.
so, yeah.
Also important to know is in terms of accessibility and disability, that this will be somewhere that people can use, and myself as a person with a disability. I have multiple sclerosis, and knowing that the library is just down the street and I can walk there, it keeps me active as well. So there's so many different reasons why this renovation will really be good for Lakeshore, and also a lot of pride will be brought to our community. So thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope I'm within my minute. 1 second.
You made it, Nicole. Thank you very much, both Nicole and Frank, for your presentation. And if you want to wait there or come back up if there's questions of council, of the delegates, Councillor Roach, go ahead.
Sure. Thanks again to everyone who's helped this project move forward. Thank you, Frank and Nicole, for your presentation and the continued collaboration between the library board, city staff, and community partners. It's clear that this project has developed a strong alignment among with community priorities, from the indoor community space strategy to the recent engagement led by Waterloo Public Library. Thank you. I appreciate that the design enhances, Heather spoke of, both the library and the recreational program reflects values of accessibility, flexibility, and inclusion. Nicole, you just spoke of the proposed makerspace and the improved access to collections, especially the inclusion of a commercial kitchen that we saw today, show a thoughtful understanding of what a modern community hub needs to offer. And these kind of spaces is where community actually happens. So I want to recognize the long-term thinking here. Our population is growing. Frankie, I think you, on your presentation, you talked about a catchment area of just over 9,000 people. I don't know how we get that number. If there maybe is a certain distance or diameter where we think of, Nicole, you had mentioned 1.5 kilometers, but that's just over 9,000, but when we think of the future, Nicole, you spoke of, let's say, even not just in Lakeshore or Ward 3, but the adjacent areas like Mary Lou, your area, the Clemmer, the Quiet Place is going to be built there, the former Krause Carpets, the area behind the fire depot, the new Beaver Creek Meadows, the new hospital. That catchment area will be doubled within the next 10 or 15 years. So I hope that council will remain ambitious but pragmatic, pursuing the full vision of while staying transparent about the path to funding. And this is where my question, maybe a little tougher question, comes in. So that said, the financial gap of nearly $7 million is not small. And I think we owe it to the residents and to Waterloo to ask, if we don't secure all of the external funding, what parts of this design, Heather, or maybe Frank and Nicole, you could chime in here, what parts of this design do we see as essential, and which components could be deferred without undermining our community commitments?
Thank you for that question, Councillor Roach. It's not a small question. I think that, I don't know if the delegates wanted to respond to that first, and then if staff wanted to, I see them getting there as well. So we'll start with you, Frank.
I'm willing to sort of undertake the answer to the question. I'm not sure that there's any part of this proposal that is something that should be dropped off the table. I know that we had a number of different designs over the last year or so, I would think. One that was a fairly bare bones one, and one that we're looking at the current time. I think what's currently in the design is what is really needed. I don't think there's anything there that isn't required. We need study space. Nicole made a good argument for the requirement for that particular area of our city, that study space is of importance. Makerspace was up there as one of the things that they really wanted to see in the space. If right now the space is primarily books, and that's about it, right? There's essentially a single table with a number of computers on it. The programming space for staff is very, very small. I'm not sure that there is any part of that current phase that could be dropped off the table. I know it's not really what you want to hear, because obviously you have to be fiscally responsible, and as an accountant myself, I understand the fiscal restraints that the city is under. But I think it's a long time coming. And I think this particular area of the city, wouldn't say it was neglected, but I think it's now time to put some budgetary money into something that will be of real service to that community. And I really can't think that there's anything in that particular proposal that really can be dropped, and then not have something that's good for the future. I think there was a comment made earlier that this is the time to do it. Once you start renovating the arena area, that particular part, it only makes sense that this is a good addition to that.
Thank you, Frank. Staff, or Kevin, did you want to add to that?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Rose. So just to echo Frank's comments, I think the vision that's been laid out today, I would say would be, I don't think it's one of those projects you can really phase down when we're looking at it this way. I think, you know, as the report mentions, this facility hasn't seen, you know, a significant facelift in maybe 30 years, right? And so the work that the team has proposed is also tackling the infrastructure deficit at this facility. And I think that hasn't maybe gotten the same attention as some of the flashier elements today, but there is an important piece there. And as Heather alluded to, you know, we're doing work with roofing. We're doing work, you know, related to accessibility, right? We're doing work related to greenhouse gas emissions. We are expanding the library, but we're also adding cooling to the rinks, which will enable more programming such as camps and things like that. It'll help us truly operate this facility as a cooling center or warming center when in need. And so I don't know that we could say any of those elements shouldn't proceed, but I think certainly recognizing the funding deficit, you know, that's not lost on staff, but I can say staff have been extremely diligent in trying to find ways to bring this budget project in as close to budget as possible. And I think, you know, the one thing I would maybe just end with is that growth element is definitely real. And I think, you know, the reflection of that in the expanded footprint is something I would strongly support here as well from the work I've seen the team been doing. It's been a great collaboration and I think a lot of good stuff here. So it'd be difficult, I think, for us to say, you know, cut this or cut that. I truly think all of it is needed.
Thank you, Kevin, for that. Councillor Roach, did you have a follow-up?
No follow-up. I just want to thank everyone for their pushing this forward. And as a pretty much lifelong resident of this community, I'm really excited for this to go forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Roach. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. This is also a project that I'm really excited about as the council liaison to the Waterloo Public Library Board. And so on one hand, I just want to commend the approach to build out as boldly as we possibly can using the opportunity that we have now. And noting that it's not just a generational opportunity, it's actually a multi-generational investment in the residents of Lakeshore. The benefits being the social connections through improved gathering spaces, programming that's appropriate to the needs of the community, and community spaces that are highly flexible and responsive. The one thing that I would just appreciate, you know, another touch point from staff on is as we're building out our approach to the financing, at what point do you come back to council with an indication of where we're at and where there's maybe a red line where we need to really think about how we make it feasible?
Thanks, Kevin. Do you want to take on the financing question? Okay.
Yep, I can start, and I'll look to Brad here behind me if there's anything else he would like to add. But I think, you know, certainly at this point, we're not at a tender award. You know, this is really schematic design, and from this point forward, we'll proceed with detailed design, construction drawings, and we can take it all the way to the point that we have a tender. So at that point, you know, per some of the comments earlier around impact of tariffs or how that all might play out, we'll have a final number that we could bring forward, and we'll have to bring forward to council for ultimate approval in order to award this. And so, you know, I'll maybe look to Brad to add in anything else just related to if there's touch points before that, but I think certainly there would be a final checkpoint or touch point in terms of a tender award, and at that time, the funding plan would be clear.
Thank you, Kevin. Did you want to add to that, Brad? Okay.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, to Councillor Wright. Yeah, just to build on Kevin's comment, that's what recommendation 2 is really looking to build upon and to give council that comfort level, what you are considering today, and that we would return back in advance of issuing the tender with some more information around the financing strategy. So what we tried to do in the report is outline some of the different options that staff are working through, and some of the challenges is the unknown. So we have an option included in here is to include some development charge funding as part of our upcoming bylaw update. There's some changes in that space, and so we have to fully work through what that would look like. We also have to look at our service level capacity to see what we could maximize through development charges. And then, you know, we look at grant opportunities. So there are some grants that we've already submitted that may or may not help us in this space. And then, you know, we do have some surplus funds that we're fortunate enough to allocate to different reserves, including the Capital Infrastructure Reinvestment Reserve and the library expansion reserve, so that's through the tax-based surplus, that's through investment surplus. So there are some dollars in the millions there that, you know, weren't at our disposal when we were doing the 24 to 26 capital budget. So there's certainly a path forward, but it'll come down to decisions. I think Councillor Roach's points are well taken. It's not a small gap, so we're not trying to say it wouldn't be something we need to kind of think through and make sure that we're funding it properly and bring it back to council to make that decision. But there is certainly a path forward, and so I think that's where we're optimistic about what we can bring back in the fall, with hopefully some grants, which certainly make this a lot more easier to achieve, where the feds and the province maybe are partners in an exciting project like this. So hopefully that helps give you the comfort and when we would be back later this year.
Thanks, Brad. I appreciate the optimism. Did you have a follow-up, Councillor Wright? Okay. Councillor Hanmer.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. And thank you, Brad. You partially answered the question I was going to ask. What wasn't popping out to me as I looked at the financing piece, it looked like we were trying to do it with our own internal resources, so to speak, the DC charges and some of our funding. So I'm pleased to hear that there are exploration anyway of granting opportunities. And just thinking of the emphasis that federally and provincially is starting to be on whether it's the small communities and 50-minute communities or having people being able to access things that are close at hand. I think those, if we can keep online with those, I'll be quite interested to see what granting opportunities we might be able to explore. Again, knowing that there's no guarantee, but at least some of the options. This certainly is a project that I think we need to be standing behind and getting it going. And I appreciate the answer that there isn't really a spot that you could not do. It's an all-encompassing piece, and I think it really shows to us also the importance we've started to play on trying to do as much as we can with our infrastructure, and I include the building as an infrastructure as we can. So I don't really have a question because Brad answered my question, so I'll look forward to having it come back later this year.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Hanmer. And I guess I'd just pick up on the comments people have made about funding. It is, as Councillor Roach said, it's not a small gap. But we do know that in the very recent federal election, there was a significant amount of talk from all the parties about stimulus funding, and there was a motion that we just passed last week or the week before about fast-tracking stimulus funding, a request to the federal government and the provincial government to say if there's economic stimulus money that does come into that is available, we need to have projects that are ready that we can put forward as quickly as possible in order to access as much of that funding as possible, knowing it needs to be distributed across the country. But it is important that we have projects ready to go, shovel ready, as they say. So I think, you know, being ready and the work that you've done with Phase A and then Phase B to say we've got this really important community project that's long overdue, that's going to serve a community of high needs. Staff and GRAC have taken really careful look at accessibility needs. We know it's an area where there's going to be thousands and thousands of new people. It's really great to see that stat that 918 new cards have been added just in the past year alone. That's wonderful to see too. So I guess my question though, you know, hoping that there's economic stimulus and things like that, my question is, to Brad, like, would there, if DCs aren't the way to go with this, and if we aren't able to get grants from the federal, provincial government, is there money potentially from land sales or some other source that we might be able to look at?
To answer your question, Mayor, it's a possibility. I think as a priority, we want to ensure that development charges is paying the fair share of the growth component. So that's an important factor. We want to aggressively pursue grants, and so that would be potentially either grants that come forward for this particular project, or as we outline in the report, there's a potential opportunity where if our green inclusive community building grants under the intake 3 are successful, that may free up some of the reference 225 transformational change monies where we could then reallocate those dollars here to see some other transformational change, but at Albert McCormick instead of Rim Park. We could then, as an alternative, look at surplus dollars that are in reserves. In addition to, we could have a conversation about the net land sale proceeds. So we did have a report that was brought to council last week that is alluding to a future land sale. So there will be some net opportunity there that maybe we could look at making a commitment or a pre-allocation through this council. And then as an alternative, if we needed to, we could have some of the cost deferred to the 27 capital budget. So, but we're hopeful that the strategy that comes back in the fall is one that can kind of accommodate it with this council and get it fully funded within this council term.
Okay, thank you very much, Brad. Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, seeing none. Just one more comment from me, the prerogative of the chair. Issues like this, I think, in the discussion around funding and, community needs and growth needs and things and development charges, I think it just really underscores the need for the federal government and the provincial government to work with municipalities on a new funding formula, because the type of growth that communities like Waterloo and across the province and across Canada are experiencing, there's just so many pieces that municipalities are responsible for now that were never envisioned in the 19th century when the property tax system was envisioned and created, that this really underscores the need for, as our municipal associations have continued to call for a new funding formula for municipalities. So just wanted to add that to the conversation as well. So, but with that, I'll look for a mover and a seconder for the 3 recommendations that are here, moved by Ward Councillor Roach and seconded by Library Board Council Liaison Councillor Wright. All in favor? That is approved. Thank you so much, Council, and thank you, staff, and to the Library Board members present and the staff members present. We look forward to continuing to look for ways to narrow that funding gap, and wish you good luck as you really move forward on this project, because it really is a long overdue and an exciting one for the community. Thank you so much, everyone involved. Okay. So with that, we will move on to allocation of the 2024 surplus, and we have Paul Henninga here with some introductory comments. Thanks. Paul, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, and members of the public. I'm here today to provide an overview of our 2024 financial results. Subject to final audit adjustments, the 24 net property tax surplus is $2.7 million, so that's good news for the city. The enterprise areas and other transactions as per policy also had a surplus for 2024. This $2.7 million property tax-based budget surplus is higher than our 5-year average prior to the pandemic. The surplus is approximately 3% of our 2024 property tax levy, or 90% accurate. As directed by Council as part of the annual Reserve and Reserve Fund update and cemetery fees and charges report, staff are recommending $500,000 of the tax-based surplus be allocated to the Planning Litigation Reserve and $250,000 to the Cemetery Reserve. The remaining surplus will be allocated in accordance with policy, with 25% or $477,000 to each of the Tax Rate Stabilization Reserve, Capital Infrastructure Reinvestment Reserve, Climate Action Reserve Fund, and the Library Expansion and Rehabilitation Reserve Fund. These reserve funds help increase the city's financial flexibility. Staff are collectively doing a very good job of budgeting according to our needs, responsibly planning to be able to cover our cost as well as anything unexpected with an accuracy rate of 97%. $1.5 million of this surplus of sustainable efficiencies and improvements have already been identified and incorporated in the 2025 budget confirmation process in late 2024. Additional sustainable amounts will be brought forward to Council for consideration during the 2026 budget confirmation process and future budgets as appropriate. With the uncertainty of budgeting and having an overall small surplus is obviously preferable to having a small deficit. Reserve funds are designated buffer amount to finance future spending requirements and protect budgets against unexpected changes in revenue and expenses. Thank you to all the staff from across all the divisions for your ongoing work to carefully monitor, analyze, and report to Council and the public the annual financial performance of the city. Staff are now available to answer any questions Council may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Council, are there questions? Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. This is always a little bit of a crystal ball exercise, and I know when we get into the budgeting process, everyone sweats the details and tries to, find all the ways that we can save upfront and be as efficient as possible. The report mentions that staff will explore the sustainability of some of the exceedances. So I noted just that the large corporate surplus items, were identified as one area where we had a surplus, and the other was the rebound of community services, especially the recreation services, which, is really fantastic. That is such a positive sign. So I just am curious about the sustainability of this revenue coming in, and so, just hoping that you can shed a little bit of light on what's involved in tightening up our budget estimating as we go forward because of this.
Thank you, Councillor Wright.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Wright, through the mayor to you. We definitely have already built in, as I said, 1.5 million of that surplus into the 2025 budget as sustainable, and we'll be evaluating it for further increases. It's difficult to predict some items that are generating the surplus as continuing in perpetuity. So I think we always want to create some flexibility in that budget to ensure that we're budgeting at the lower amount of a 5-year average, or else we run the risk of running into a deficit in 1 year where we now have to scramble to find funding for. So that's been our approach over the years, and definitely we are building those amounts into the budget as we deem them sustainable, and we'll be going through that process again in 2026 for the 2026 budget in the fall of 2025.
Thank you, Paul. Did you have a follow-up, Councillor Wright? Nope. Okay. Any other questions from Council on this? Again, I just echo partly what you said, but thanks to staff for their very diligent work on this. And, it's a big budget, $100 million operating budget, and to come within just shy of 3% accuracy is no small feat. And we know that, as Councillor Wright said, Council's always looking to see where we can nip and tuck and save some hard-earned tax dollars from residents, and I know that staff have to have that approach as well. So appreciate the report and the work that staff have done across the corporation for the past year to land at a 3% or 97% accuracy rate with the budget, with a very large budget. So thanks very much. So with that, I will look for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Bodley. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. And so the next item here is for the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund, Beaver Creek Meadows Pumping Station. And we have staff Dan Duranto, I'm not sure if I'm saying that properly, and Brad here if we have any questions. Are there any questions, Council, around this? You're moving it? Okay. So moved by Councillor Bodley and seconded by Councillor Hanmer. All in favor? That is approved. And just say that we do have a new federal cabinet being appointed tomorrow, so we will find out who's in charge of the infrastructure fund and who the new finance minister is, and we will have staff ready to go with applications for whatever, for funds for this. And again, just want to underscore the need for a new funding formula. Okay, so with that, that is our council meeting for this afternoon. We are going to recess and reconvene at 6:30 this evening to consider a planning matter. So with that, we'll adjourn for this afternoon and we'll welcome you back at 6:30. Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.